The topic of today's discussion is demand and supply. Think about a situation during Thanksgiving sale. All the stores reduce their prices substantially in order to sell more. So there's some kind of psychological thing going on where reduction of prices leads to more sale, or essentially it also means that reduction of prices leads to more demand for goods that stores are selling. To understand this interplay between demand and supply, first I would like to spend some time talking about market, because it's the market where this interaction of demand and supply takes place. So first let's define market. A market is a group of buyers and sellers of a particular good or service. So essentially, anywhere there's some kind of exchange going on between two individuals, among them one is a buyer and one is a seller, that's a market. It can be your local store, it can be a superstore, or it can be websites like Amazon.com or eBay.com. So, in a buyer determines the demand for goods and services, whereas sellers determine the supply of goods and services. So think about, so if you want to buy something, you are demanding something. On the other hand, if you want to sell something, you are supplying something. The supply represents the firms or companies or stores who wants to sell goods and services, whereas demand represents people like you and me who wants to buy goods and services. Now let's define this demand. What is demand, or what popularly called law of demand? The law of demand states that other things equal, the quantity demanded of a good falls when the price of the good rises and vice versa. So couple of things here. First we need to focus on this word falls, and then the good rises. So there's a kind of opposing forces going on. As price of the good rises, quantity demanded falls. As price of the good falls, quantity demanded rises. So let's take a concrete example. What does it mean actually? And let's take a hypothetical situation for Catherine's demand schedule. Here is the demand schedule for Catherine. So if I have given you price of ice cream cone and quantity of cones demanded by Catherine, and we typically know as price is lower, your quantity demanded should be high. Suppose the ice cream cone is free, the price is $0. So Catherine wants to buy at $0 this 12 units of ice cream. So as price increases from 0 to 50 cents, the quantity demanded decreases to 10. As price increases to $1, quantity demanded decreases to 8, and this goes on forever till price increases to $3 when Catherine doesn't want to buy any ice creams at all. So we can represent this situation in a nice graph, and this graphical representation will help us to derive a demand curve for Catherine's demand for ice cream. So first I'll draw So typically in this graph, on the x-axis, that horizontal axis, we measure quantity, and here quantity of ice creams, and here on the y-axis we measure price, and this is price for ice creams. So let's first divide this. So it starts at 0, it's 50 cents, then $1, then $1.50, then $2, then $2.50, then finally $3. Then I have quantities which starts at 0, then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. So here at $0, if the price is $0, Catherine wants to buy 12 ice creams. So if 0 and she wants to buy here 12. If price is 50 cents, Catherine wants to buy 10 units of ice cream. So I would go something like, I draw this points, just draw the similar thing from 10, and that's your next one. At $1, Catherine wants to buy 8 ice creams. So I do the same thing. I go up there and let's go 8 ice creams. You go on forever. Like at 150, she wants to buy 6 ice cream. At $2, she wants to buy 4 ice creams. At 250, she wants to buy 2, and at 0, she is not willing to buy anything at $3. So if you join these points, so let's join these points. So let's join these points. And this is our, so this is our demand curve, and this demand curve shows the Catherine's demand for ice cream at different prices. And demand curve typically is downward sloping with respect to price. That means as price increases, quantity demanded decreases. Now, is price the only factor that affects demand? Obviously no. There are other factors that affects demand, and these are the other factors that typically affects demand. These are consumers' income, price of related goods, taste, expectations, number of buyers. So, but primarily we are concerned here the effect of price on quantity of goods demanded. So this is the buyer side. Demand typically talks about the buyer side. So let's now take up the supply side, the supplier side. Like demand, we also have a law of supply. The law of supply states that other things equal, the quantity supplied of a good rises when the price of the good rises, and vice versa. Here, as price increases, as a seller, you want to sell more because your profit goes up. On the other hand, as price decreases, you want to sell less. Obviously, your profits are decreasing. We'll take an example. Let's talk about Ben's supply schedule. Suppose Ben is the ice cream seller and he wants to sell ice cream, and he needs to decide how much to sell at different prices. And obviously, as price increases, you'll sell more because your profits are higher, and vice versa. So here we have a situation where your price starts at 0, and at $0, obviously you don't want to sell anything because you are not going to make any money. So you sell 0 cones. Then price increases to 50 cents. Well, maybe 50 cents is not enough to recover all the cost you are incurring to sell the ice cream. So you may end up selling again 0 ice creams. Suppose price increases to $1. Maybe it makes sense right now to sell 1 ice cream. As price increases to $1.50, you'll perhaps sell 2 ice creams. Finally, as it goes up to 3, you might end up selling 5 ice creams. Clearly, you can see the direction as price increases, so is the quantity. So price and quantity moves in the same direction. So let's now put it into a nice graph. So let's draw a similar graph as we have done for demand. So let's do again, like demand, I'll measure quantity of ice cream on the x-axis, that's horizontal axis, and the price of ice cream on the vertical axis. I'll measure price. It starts at 0, then it increases to 50 cents, then it increases to $1, then it's $1.50, $2, $2.50, and finally $3. Quantities, it goes to 0, it stays 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So now let's draw this graph. So let's start here. Our first one, at $0 you demand 0 cones, so this remains here. At 50 cents you still demand 0 cones, you don't sell anything. At $1 now you want to sell 1 cone, so we'll do like this. So always draw a line parallel to y and x axis. So this is your point for $1 and 1 ice cream. Then if price increases to 1.5, you want to sell 2 ice creams. At $2 you want to sell 3 ice creams. At 2.5 you want to sell 4 ice cream. At $3 you want to sell 5 ice cream. Now let's connect these dots. Okay, once you collect these dots, what you get is your supply curve. So this is your supply curve. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can see clearly there's a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. That means as price increases, you want to sell more because you are going to make more money. So supply curve typically is upward sloping. Is supply is determined by price only? Obviously no. There are other factors that affect supply, and these are some of the other factors that affect supply. Input prices, that means how much it costs to produce something. Suppose you are selling coffee. If coffee bean prices increases, obviously it increases your cost of production. Then technology, better technology, less cost, more profit, more sale. Then it also depends upon expectations. It's about how much you are going to sell, what you think about the future, and also number of sellers. That another factor that affects supply. So anyway, in this part of the course, we are more interested in the relationship between price and quantity supplied, which is says that as price increases, quantity supply increases. Now, final step is to bring this supply and demand together, and when supply and demand together, what they determine is the equilibrium. So equilibrium in a market refers to a situation in which the price has reached the level where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded, or in the now we want to bring this supply and demand together. Now think about it. In a market there are a large number of people who are demanding ice cream. If you look at the market for ice cream, there may be Catherine, there may be John, there may be Jerry, there may be Julian. All these people want to buy ice cream, and they have a psychological price they would like to pay for a piece of ice cream. Similarly, there are a large number of sellers of ice cream, which includes people like Jerry, Ben, 10,000 different people. So when you add up all these people's supply and demand together, what we get the market demand schedule for ice cream, and that's shown in this left graph, which shows the market demand for ice cream. So if the price is 0, the market demand is 19, which includes not only Catherine, maybe other people who wants to buy ice cream. Similarly, price is 50 cents, market demand is 16. On the other hand, supply schedule shows the market supply for ice cream at different prices. Obviously at 0, nobody wants to sell ice cream. At 50 cents, it's not profitable enough, so nobody wants to sell it. At $1, there might be only one seller. At $1.50, there might be 4 sellers of ice cream. 4 ice creams people wants to sell. At $2, it might be 7. So you can look at this. So we have a situation where as price decreases, market demand increases. On the other hand, as price increases, market supply increases. So you have these opposing forces coming together, and we'll call a equilibrium at the point where market demand, in this case which is 7, and market supply which is 7 at $2, it will be our equilibrium. Now we can draw this in a diagram. So let's draw this demand and supply together in a diagram. So let's call it equilibrium. So we have this situation where I have price, I have quantity. Now let's go back here. So I know the price goes from, for demand scale, price goes from $0 to $3. So I'll go from, so start here. So let's start with the price. So price goes from $0 to $3. So 0, then 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. And quantity goes up to 19. So let's make 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So this is 16, 18, and 20. Okay, so if you remember, so we have this market demand and market supply. So we'll plot now first the demand. So we know at $0 demand for ice cream is 19. So we'll just plot 19 somewhere in between. At 50 cents demand is 16. At $1 demand is 13. It should be somewhere in between, so somewhere here. At $1.50 is 10, so it should be here. At $2 it shows it's 7. At $2.5 it's 4, and at $3 is just 1. So if you draw these points, just join these points, what you got is the demand, or rather market demand for okay. I'll do the same thing for supply. So for supply, at $0 nobody wants to supply anything. At 50 cents nobody wants to supply anything. At $1 there's a supply of only 1 ice cream. At $1.5 there's a supply of 4 ice creams. At $2 there's a supply of 7 ice creams. So this point kind of intersects, and this is very important. At $2.5 there are supplies of 10 ice creams. So somewhere here. And at $3 it comes out to be 13. Should be somewhere here. So if you join these points and see it passes up here, this is your market supply for ice cream. And the point where this demand and supply meets, okay, so this is where your is 7 and price is 2, this point of intersection is called equilibrium, and $2 is the equilibrium price and $7 ice creams is the equilibrium quantity. So this is how the supply and demand is supposed to work, where there's opposing forces. Buyers wants to buy at a lower price, seller wants to sell at a higher price, and they kind of like interact at the equilibrium point where there is no excess demand or excess supply of ice cream. So let's try to understand how there can be excess supply or excess demand. So we can have a situation like this. Okay, so there's a price, there's a quantity, and then we have a demand which is downward sloping, we have a supply which is upward sloping, and this is the equilibrium, and your equilibrium price we found out is $2 and equilibrium quantity is 7. If for some reason the price is set at say $2.5 for some reason, okay, suppose price is 2.5, at this price your quantity demanded would be only 4 and quantity supplied would be 10. So there's a excess supply of 3 ice cream. That means sellers are unable to sell. They can only sell it if they reduce the price. Similarly, if there is a price which is below this equilibrium price, suppose the price is set at $1, $1. So at $1, quantity supplied is only 1, whereas quantity demanded would be 13. So this gap is called excess demand of 12 ice creams. So this is how, if the price is set above the equilibrium, it will cause excess supply. If price is set below the equilibrium, it will cause excess demand. So this what concludes our understanding of the concept of supply and demand and the concept of equilibrium